Michael Crookston is employed by the Office of Information Technology at BYU and supports BYU Photo by managing the technology that stores over 1.2 petabytes of photos and video. Michael took classes in high school and photo classes in high school and throughout college. He enjoyed photography to the point that he was always trying to figure out a way to ethically build a dark room in his college apartment. Michael has a love of all things technology and was an early adopter of digital photography, mainly because the ethical apartment darkroom idea never panned out. Please put your hands together for Michael.
Thank you so much for coming. I like to wander. I'll try to stay here since I don't have a mic. If I start to wander and you can't hear me, just raise your hand and I'll come back to the podium. But first of all, I want to thank all of you for being here and for coming. This is a photography conference and you're here to listen to an IT guy talk about digital stuff, so that makes me feel good. Also, Jaron, when he asked me to speak, he had a really weird way of asking me. He grabbed me in the hall after staff meeting and said, hey, would you mind speaking at our upcoming conference? We have these things we call vegetable talks. And it's like eating your vegetables. Nobody really wants to be there. They want to be out eating or out taking photos, but they know they should probably be there. And so I don't know how to take that. I'm like, wait, so nobody really, you want me to, all right, sure, I'll do it. So I thought I might have 5 or 6 people show up, but this is good. Let's prove him wrong. As it said in the introduction, I'm not a professional photographer. I'm an IT guy. I've worked in information technology for the last, officially for the last 11 years. But I do love photography. I have a real passion for it. And I would call myself an enthusiastic hobbyist. And I thought as I was getting ready to give this presentation, I'm like, I'm going to have a room of photographers here. Give me one piece of advice for a hobbyist, somebody. What's one simple piece of advice that you would have for somebody like me? It can be anything. Something you've learned along the way. Yeah.
Look at your background first, and then work toward your subject, and look at your foreground, and then shoot.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah, please.
You're taking a photo with your phone and you're getting a flare. Just cup your hand.
Oh, great. Good idea. Another one.
Phone stuff, make sure you clean the lens.
Yeah, I actually had that problem yesterday. I pulled out to take a picture. I'm like, why is this blurry? Yeah.
Keep it fun.
Keep it fun. We're going to, yeah, one more.
Don't walk into something with too many preconceived notions because very likely to end up that way.
Great idea. In the back, yeah.
Make sure you can find it later.
Make sure you can find it later. Perfect. We're going to talk about that. So I thought we'd have some fun with this presentation, and one way I thought to do that is to bring in AI. And so I thought, I'm going to go out and I'm going to ask AI to help me with my slides. So I gave AI a simple prompt and just picked one of the 4. So there was no prompt engineering. This is just a simple pick. And according to AI, according to Dolly, this is an image of photography advice. I don't know what that means. I don't know why that works. I don't know what's going on with the bee, but we'll have some fun with these today. So I said, okay, AI, create me one piece, an image for one simple piece of IT advice. This is the image I got. Gave me career advice. I was on my work computer. That kind of scared me a little bit. What does it know? We're going to call that a fail. So I thought, as I was getting ready to talk to you, I thought, what is one piece of advice, one simple piece of advice that I can give you that I think will be the most beneficial when it comes to digital storage? And that one simple piece of advice is this, and it is to create a data management policy. And I know what you're thinking. Yes, I just said the P word. And I apologize for that. I don't like the P word more than anybody else. Policy. You're coming here and you're like, oh, he's going to talk to us about policy. Well, I kind of am a little bit. Nobody likes policy. If you don't like the word policy, we'll use the word strategy. I worked for the government for 13 years, and I worked at a nuclear facility. And we actually, I'm not kidding, we actually had a policy for the correct way to go to the restroom. And so when I say policy, I know nobody likes it, But this is one thing that I think will really, really help you out in the long run. Now, this is a prompt of a person saying the P word according to Adobe Firefly. Before you get too comfortable and think, well, okay, I should be out doing photos now, we have a policy, we've had a policy. If you can answer these next 5 questions and feel good about them in your heart, I will pause right here and you can go take photos. We'll give you an applause as you leave. Because there's 5 things that we need to have. And the first one is it written down? A lot of times we'll have a policy or we'll have a strategy, but it's not written anywhere. If it is written down, do you know where it is? Somebody wrote a policy or somebody's written a policy for your college or your campus, but you haven't seen it. The person before you wrote a policy, you don't know where it's at. Do you know where it is? Is it easy to understand? Can you take that policy and could you give it to me, the new IT guy, and have me know what your workflow is, how you operate, how you want to save your photos, move your photos, store your photos, how that kind of lays out. Could you give it to an intern or to an apprentice, to a new student, and have them understand that workflow? Does it have a review date on it? The review date is to help keep it current. It doesn't have to be a super short review date. I think maybe 2.5 years. It's going to depend maybe on your college and on your budgeting cycle, but it needs to be reviewed because technology does change, and if you don't review it, you can find yourself out of date quickly. And the last one, this last point, is kind of what I would consider your golden ticket, your helpful one, and that is, does it have your management signature? And that is key, because what it's going to allow you to do is a couple of things. One, it's going to allow you to ask for more money. If you have a strategy and you say, hey, we've thought this out, we've got a strategy, this is how we work, and your management signed off on it, and all of a sudden you are asked to do more and you need to store more, you can go back to this policy and say, hey, we're now taking more photos of athletics, or we're taking more photos of this and we need more storage. And it gives you the ability to ask. It also gives you the ability to get rid of things. If you have a policy where you're only going to store photos for a certain period of time, you can feel safe deleting it. Your management signed off on it. So, any guess on the prompt? We've got a photographer relaxing in a hammock with an empty thought bubble. Don't ask me what's going on with his legs. I have no idea. I don't know why the camera, but again, we've got an AI fail. So, why create these strategies? We kind of talked about it a little bit, and that is, it's going to save you work. In the long run, this is going to make your life easier. Yes, it's going to take a little while to set up, but once you've got it in place, you can refer to it, and you can give it to other people and move through it. It's going to save you time. It will ultimately save you money. It'll save you stress. And last but not least, your IT people will worship you. I'm being a little joking about that, but in all honesty, the reason I gave this one piece of advice is because throughout the years, I've seen data management strategies that kind of fall into 2 categories. And the first one is data management by accident. And what I mean by that is I've got a camera and my card gets full, and so I move that to my desktop or to my computer, and then my hard drive gets full, and so I go out and I buy another hard drive and I put it on there, and pretty soon I've got data kind of strewn everywhere, and that's kind of a data strategy by accident. And the other one is data strategy by money. And so the hard drive or the computer gets full and you think, what am I going to do? And you go out and you find a DAM solution, a digital asset solution, and you buy it, but it's not really a strategy, right? It provides you a solution, but that solution is really only temporary. Eventually, that's not going to help you get where you need to go. And so having that will help. 3 types of data, when we're talking really broad categories of data. And we need to be clear on these a little bit, because I think it'll help make things simpler. Does anybody know or have an idea what 3 general categories of data are? Yeah.
Images, video, sound.
Okay, we've got image, video, and sound. I'm thinking even broader, even bigger terms, data management. Those are actually definitely images and video or types. And we treat those different, we do. Even broader. Yeah.
Statistical?
Okay, statistical.
One, I'm not giving you the other two.
Okay.
See if I'm right.
Archival,
Okay, good.
current, and long-term archival, or deeper archival, something like that.
Good. Okay. We're gonna call them a little bit different, but you're correct. Okay. The first one is working data. Working data is your current photos. It's what you're doing and using every single day. The second one is backup data. This is a copy of your working data. And the third one is archival data. How is archival data different than backup data? Because these often get confused.
Archival data is probably not on your local PC. It's backed up and backed up.
Okay, it's not most likely on my PC. It shouldn't be on my PC. Good. Okay.
Not readily accessible.
It's not readily accessible. Think even bigger. A backup, as you're saying, should be readily accessible. I should be able to get to my backup. My archive is going to be things that I want to keep forever. This is my best work. This is things that need to live with my university. These are the things that we want to keep. Backup might not be archival. It shouldn't be archival. Backup is a backup of what I'm currently working on. These are the projects, I'm going to stand back a little bit. These are the projects that I need to work on and get turned in. And so I want to have them backed up. All right, let's talk data history strategies a little bit. So originally we had data way back when, and somebody said, well, we should keep a copy of that data. We got one copy of that data. What if your hard drive fails? Makes perfect sense, right? Absolutely, I should have a copy. Well, then somebody later said, well, we should keep one copy in a separate location. Absolutely, that makes sense. Are we tracking? Yeah, because if the building floods, catches fire, I could lose my data. Well, then it went to, well, we should keep a second copy of that data. Well, why? Well, because if I take one copy and I put it somewhere else and my data fails, but now I need to get to it, I need to have a copy that's easy to get to, right? Okay, great. Well, then it went to keep 3 copies of my data. Anybody know what the third copy is? Should be a copy on a separate medium. What happens if my hard drive fails and this is called the 3-2-1 strategy. How many have heard of the 3-2-1 strategy, right? Perfect. It's been around for forever, 25 plus years, and you'll hear this used all the time, is this 3-2-1 strategy. And it's not a bad strategy, but we're gonna maybe talk about some different ideas here. The newest one, or a newer one, is the 3-2-1-1 strategy. Anybody know what the extra 1 is for? Yeah. Not cloud, actually. Similar, but no. Any other ideas what the extra 1 is for? I've got 3 copies of my data. I've got 2 different medium. I've got 1 in a separate location. And now I've got an extra 1 that is what they call, oh, we got it.
I would probably put that outside. Somewhere else, simply because, like, even if my university flooded or there was a tornado, my data is still somewhere else. I knew of a man who used to live in Florida. Literally, his backup was in New York.
Mm-hmm. And that is my, in number 6, that first 1, that is my off-site. So we've got another one now. And this came in about 8, 9, 10 years ago. Do you know what was really on the rise about 8 years ago? What was that?
Dropbox, or some kind of storage.
Dropbox, but there was something else in the IT world that was influencing this that came on really hard about 8 years ago, and that was ransomware. And ransomware, even if you've got it in the cloud or you've got it on a separate server, if they're connected, if you have a link, we can move from one to the next and actually encrypt or ransomware that data that's out someplace else. And so this extra one became immutable, meaning that there's a copy of your data out there that can't be changed.
Like an air gap of sorts.
Not even an air gap, but written in some sort of format that can't be rewritten. So I have a copy of my data and I have it burned to a CD. I have it locked in a way that now something can't unlock that and write it. That was this next one, yeah.
So couldn't that be an off-site hard drive, SSD drive that is that's at another location that's not connected to your system?
Yes, it could. So you could, yes, so back to the air gap question, yes, or to the off-site, yes. If you have it offline somewhere else, you could call that an immutable copy because it's not online. So that would...
But it could be changed theoretically. Someone could go into the hard drive and change it, whereas a burned CD, you can't.
Correct. Correct, yes. It could be changed. If your system's been compromised and you don't know it and you plug that drive back in and the ransomware hits, it could wipe it at that time, right? An air gap I would consider safe in a separate system. There's one more I heard a couple months ago, and now the newest and the latest term is 32110. Anybody know what the zero's for? I had never heard of it. I had to go look it up. I was at a technology conference, a storage conference, and they started talking about this 32110. I'd never heard of it. The zero stands for you need to have a system that can now check all of these copies and make sure that there's no degradation, no what they call bit rot, between all of your different copies.
Great name for a band.
Bit rot. Okay, this is a short history of data strategy, right? Anybody beside, I'm the tech guy in the room, right? This is what I do for a living, and this overwhelms me, right? To me, the photo is Adobe Firefly, and I asked it to give me a short history of common data strategies, which I will admit is a very, very vague prompt. I kind of like the photo. It's kind of this weird steampunk, got some hieroglyphics in here. I think it's pretty cool. We're going to call the strategies a fail. I think the data strategies are really a fail because do they feel overwhelming? Where do you start, right? Where do I move my data? Okay, yeah, I agree. I think it's absolutely overwhelming. Oh, wait, sorry. We're going to go back first, and we're going to talk about who comes up with these strategies, right? It's this guy. I ask AI, it's this guy. This guy, we're going to call him Steve, and he looks really, really happy. His dog, not so much. But this is an image of a person rolling in a pile of cash, according to Dolly 3. Right? The hands turned out pretty well. The teeth are pretty good also. But yeah, we've got another fail. So I decided to try again. This time I wanted a digital storage salesperson rolling in a fat pile of cash because I think that's who comes up with these strategies. And we got this. I don't know what's going on with this leg. It's creepy, but okay, we're going to call that a failed also. So what makes a good strategy? Okay, and this is according to Mike, and what makes a good strategy are three simple things in my opinion. And the first one is classify your data according to its value. You're already doing this. You're going through your photos, you're looking at them, you're assigning what you think is a good photo. That's already there. We'll talk more about this in a minute and why that's important. The next thing is to manage your data according to its value. It's really pretty simple. If you've got a photo that you want to keep for forever, you need to treat it differently than a photo that you don't want to keep forever. You don't have to store everything forever. And the last one is retain data according to its value. And obviously there's going to be some legal exceptions there. You may have to store certain things based on some legal stipulations. You might also have to delete some things based on legal stipulations, right? But those are the three things you need to be thinking about, honestly, when you come up with your data strategy or your data policy. And it's going to simplify your life and it's going to make it easier. So you all know, you're photographers, you all know when you see a good photograph, right? You all know that this is not a good photograph. I ask Firefly to give me a balanced scale with a good photo on one side and a bad photo on the other. And I actually had to reprompt this 3 or 4 different times to I tried to get an unbalanced scale and it wouldn't do it. But here's the point I'm trying to make, and that is not all data is created equal. Stop treating it that way. Yes, it's all in caps. Yes, it's got exclamation points. I'm trying to make a point here is that oftentimes we want to store everything for forever. And that data strategy is going to get you in trouble and it's going to cause you headache. Assign your data value and protect what's important. It's that simple. And we tend to forget that. And that makes life hard. So here's where I'm going to step up. I should have asked Jaron to get me an Apple box so I could stand up on my soapbox for a little bit. But I'm going to ask you a question. And this is just to think about, and that is, how do you want to be remembered? Too often, I think, in the working world, we start thinking of quantity versus quality. And I don't know if it comes from back in the widget days, when if you could produce 1,000 widgets a day instead of 500, or, you had more value. I would argue in a creative world, that's not the way we need to be thinking. But as photographers, sometimes that happens. Anybody last night, there was a question asked to Dan Winters, amazing photographer. They asked him about his turning in photography to editors. Do you remember how many photos he turned in to his editor? He's starting out his career. He's trying to build his career, right? He's trying to build his career. He's trying to make a name for himself, even in the early days.
I remember you saying 120, he's very small.
Yeah, originally he said there were times when he'd turn in 1 photo. He would turn in 1 photo, and he said even now it's sometimes 3 to maybe 6. Is that interesting? That was interesting to me when I heard him say that, right? Yeah, please.
Maybe this is for later, but
No, go ahead.
how I want to be remembered is very different from how the institution feels and what one of the feels. In addition, that's actually a huge political question of within the marketing department, which is a de facto historical repository of the university. I would like to get them on board with this is a historical repository, but that is a long road. So until then, what I've been told is throw away everything that we're not using, including stuff that I know is useful later, but I can't educate them very easily. So if I follow what they said, so what that means is, honestly, I have a bunch of discs, because I'm not going to listen to them and I'm going to do it on my own dime. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Great. And this is true, right? There's going to be a balancing act, absolutely, because as a creative, you're taking photos that you love and you want to be remembered by, but the institution is looking at something else, right? And we're trying to find that center.
I was just going to say, going with what he's saying and you're saying, having worked in special collections and looking at images and working with professors and other people, historians, of an image that's over 100 years old, or an artifact, what they're looking for in that selection that they compiled may have nothing to do with why it was even originally created. So, you're sitting there trying to, when you're second pitch them,
The original value has changed completely.
you're second guessing, your boss is second guessing on something that 100 years from now, we don't know what the value is.
You're trying to
Something that we think of as just even a common image. As a friend said, we had a photographer step out on Business Street in 1954 and he took a photo. That was it, nothing special. He goes, but now we look at it.
What's the Dan Winters photo that he showed of his street scene?
How much power is built in, well, you showed, the thing showed.
Right.
But that had so much value now, maybe at the time, it didn't hold much value.
Yeah. It's a tricky place to be. You're trying to.
Absolutely, right. Why did that picture that Dan showed make it into a book? Why was it impressive to Dan?
So who's the photographer? It was Cartier-Bresson.
No, it was Steve. Yeah.
Okay, and it was an early photograph?
He said he could feel what the tension in the moment.
You could feel the scene.
Yeah.
Feel the smell.
But it was on the street, which is the thing, is usually it was more stayed, no action.
Right.
He took it to the street even though it was bulky equipment.
Yes. As opposed to the studio or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, my point is it was still a good photo, right? Even though it was a common street scene, what we would consider maybe not, an amazing subject, it was still an amazing photo. There was emotion to it, there was intention behind it. Those are the things we need to hold on to. Yes, I can see the argument of this may be historical one day, right? And absolutely, that's another reason to value that data and hold on to it. If you have an important person that comes and speaks at your college, you should hold on to those photos, right? That may be important for historical value. So I go through and a lot of people will come to me and ask for me to recover data. Hey, I've had a hard drive fail, I've had a camera card fail, can you get data back off of it? And I'll go through and I will find as many photos as I can get back. And oftentimes I'll find a folder that's labeled portfolio, right? And a lot of times I don't know these people, and I'll look at this portfolio and I'll be like, wow, this person is amazing. This is an amazing photographer, right? And then I'll find all of the other photos. And the argument I'm trying to make is what you do is magic. There really is magic behind what you do. That intentionality you put into finding a photograph, finding the lighting, finding the time is magic. But if you pull back the carpet and I see all of the bad photographs, all of the trying to get to that magic, it's like looking behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz, right? I still appreciate what you do, but it takes it down just a notch, right? So it comes back to that intentionality when I ask, how do you want to be remembered? And what I'm hoping to get at is, don't be afraid when you're culling. Don't be afraid to get rid of photographs. If it's not a good photograph, if it's your test photographs, right? I find people, oh, here's my test subject. I'm taking Joey, I'm going to pick on you. I have Joey stand in, and I check my lighting with Joey. I love Joey. Joey's an amazing model, but why am I keeping the photo, right? I've got other pictures of Joey, or I'll be intentional when I take a picture of Joey, right? I don't need to keep that test shot. But oftentimes I'll see those show up. So don't be afraid to cull, yeah.
When you say don't, do you mean delete it forever? Or if it was filmed, throw the film out? Like, what do you mean by don't? Because this is where I think a lot of the struggle with, and it was great that we broke down the working archive. What do you mean by delete?
I mean delete. I mean don't keep. I mean, let me help. All right. Does he really mean delete? I'm going to help you out here, right? Okay, so I ask AI to help me with an image. I ask AI to give me an image. And I said, to answer your question, I said, create an image of the Grim Reaper mercilessly cutting through a large stack of photographs. Okay? And this is what AI gave me. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. Look at the bottom. This is my favorite part. An exclamation point. It might be time to start a new topic. Let's start over.
And I had this conversation with you after your talk. I mean, I just go back to the example, and I believe it was Douglas Kirkland, or for those of you, there's enough people that remember Monica Lewinsky.
No.
He shot, the story goes, and I'm pretty sure it's Douglas, but he went out and was a White House photographer, shot 1,000 photos similar to what we do, but never got rid of anything. And he knew that the times that Monica Lewinsky was an intern at the White House, he was there, he had shot. He paid someone $5,000 to go through his archive, which at the time was slides, and go through. He found an image. He made $500,000 from that photo of Monica Lewinsky hugging Bill Clinton. That was just an outside press event throwaway image. Now, coming up, that, I heard this firsthand from him, and, it's been well documented. I don't throw away anything. I have my negatives from my college days sitting to much my wife's happiness, taking up space. And with digital asset every year getting cheaper and cheaper, hard drives getting cheaper and cheaper, why would we? And I'm sure you're going to get to this, but why would we want it for that off chance? And again, as running my own business at the time, I looked at it from a financial investment. And by the way, I can tell you firsthand, random thing, I was an intern, so I owned my images at the time, from the Miami Herald, photographed a random woman at a nightclub for some feature we do with nightclubs. She got eaten by an alligator. Okay, tragic story. Family were looking, everyone's jumping on the story. This woman got eaten by an alligator. She was sitting with her dog at, it's Florida. Long story short, with the permission of her family, I had this only photo, I guess, that existed that the family loved. I made a crap load of money selling it, because all the news outlets wanted it. The parents were happy with that image going out. And it randomly was because I also took her name down, which was important, and it was in our system.
Yeah, and honestly, that's your choice, right? It ultimately boils down to your choice. If you have the bandwidth and the capability and the money to save everything and save it forever, absolutely, go ahead and do it. There's a monetary cost, there's also a time cost, right? And the time cost of managing these photos as they grow larger and bigger and more storage starts to happen, can you get in there too? Yes, digital storage is getting cheaper, and we all hope that someday there's going to be something that's permanent and lasts forever. I don't think we're there yet, and we'll talk about some of that, yeah.
Just a quick question. When you're archiving, are you culling your RAWs as well, or are you keeping just JPEGs, or how are you, when you're in your file archives, are you just keeping the JPEG photos, or?
We're gonna talk about that in just a second, yeah. So, back to here. Yeah, we're gonna call that a fail. But I didn't want to give up on this image, so I tried again. I went out to Adobe Firefly. I asked Firefly to give me the same image. And do you feel it? Do you feel what I'm trying to get across here? No, I didn't either, so we called that a fail. So I pulled out the big guns and I went to an unlocked version running on a custom machine of Juggernaut XL, which is a version of Stable Diffusion, but run diffusion. And now I ask for an image, and this is what I got. Right now we're getting to where I kind of want to be with this. We're getting a little bit closer. Don't be afraid is what I'm saying. If you want to keep everything forever and you've got the bandwidth and the capability to do it, do it. There'll always be a story about the photo that got lost that was needed, and there'll always be a story about the photo that made somebody $1 million, right? We've got two extremes here. I'm trying to look at the middle, right? What do you have bandwidth and capability to do? So, but don't be afraid, I guess is what I'm saying. If you want to be remembered, and you want to be remembered as amazing photography, protect your amazing work. Give that priority. The stuff that might be that photo, keep it, that's fine, but don't stress over it. Put it somewhere else, yeah.
I just want to table this for later, that is, if I go back and call, it'll have to be sometime after the event or whatever happened. And that's a time investment that I don't quite feel like I can do. So working even in the calling, I'd like to discuss that at some point today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a good medium and what to keep and whatnot. And we don't always do it. Let's say you just finished a portrait session, you shot 28 portraits. and you sat down with the client and singled out those are the 3 that they want to use. In a perfect world, you'd immediately take the other 25 and click delete. You're never going to go back to the 4th favorite photo, especially if it's a person that shows the photos that he's approving use.
Right.
But most of us don't do that. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of portraits that are not starred, not categorized, we're never going to use them, and it's terabytes of data already.
Yeah.
So that, and then you're not risking not having the image of that person. You have it, you just have the top 3 that you chose.
I think that's a perfect example. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I don't know if this helps, but I don't have a team at all, so I have to kind of do all of like the archiving, editing, all that kind of stuff. I'm assuming a lot of you have to do the same thing. Process that I created because I don't like keeping a ton of stuff, and when I'm shooting an event, I'll bracket relentlessly. And there's usually one photo out of the bracketing process. And when I say bracketing, I'm not really doing it for exposure. I'm just trying to get more bracketing for like the moment. You know, there's always one photo in that moment. There's not the one before or the one after. It's the one. Right. And I'll get rid of all of those. Right. This is the editing process. Then I'll end up with that set, and I'll delete or just I won't pick it out of the raw image file out of that's spit out in the can. Okay, and then I'll go and I'll convert it to DNG in Photoshop because I've always been trained that that's a more reliable archival file format than any camera body method. Right, exactly. Yeah. And then I'll go through and pick what I think the client will like best, or whoever hired me to do this, right? And the first edit at that point, whatever doesn't get picked, I'll drag that into a folder called trash, and files will live in trash for 5 months. After I get beyond 5 months, I'll start deleting. If no one's looking for it, if I'm not looking for it, if it's not like tugging at me, like, oh, what was that one photo you really kind of dug but nobody liked, you know? I'll delete it. And I'll start like deleting trash, anything that's beyond 5 months out, you know? And then even then, there's still like, after you make that selection, there's still like what the client wants, because the client doesn't want 150 photos, the client wants maybe your top 30 at that point. And I've always found in 20 years of doing this that like, it's always one of those photos that like would end up in like a contest setting that the VP is like, oh, I really love that one photo. You know, every now and again there will be like that one photo that I really dug but nobody else did, and I'll keep it for my own purposes. But like,
you have to think for this now.
yeah, but it's like, yeah, exactly.
Is your policy with them?
No, the first part is not. It's in my head. But like, yeah, if I went to IT and was like, yo, do this, they'd be like, no. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of like share that process with you, because what I'm seeing with a lot of, and I used to be a photojournalist too, is there's a lot of keeping of everything, and that like overwhelms me personally. You know, I'm like, oh my God, this is too much.
That's exactly the process that you described. Everything from the culling process to the trash folder,
yeah,
to holding on to it. Some hold on longer than others, just in case it was an event that we haven't fully evolved yet, like how we're going to handle it. But yeah, it's exactly what I did, and it's for the same reasons. It's just too much.
Yeah. If a designer ever comes to me and they're like, hey, you have this photo, but with like, maybe it's less in the center and more 2/3 or something like that, in compositional framing for like type or logo or anything like that, I might go back to the trash to see if it's possible if I made that photo. If I didn't, then no. But like, you know, it's like,
the way I convince myself that it's okay is I started out in the film era, so if I went to an assignment, I'm not going to shoot nearly as many images as I do now. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially getting it down to, you know, a roll of film, 2 rolls of film, and I'm eliminating the bracket part. I'm just keeping the one that bracketed, what you're calling the bracketed area, is the one I want to keep. Yeah, and then go from there.
And I think that's an interesting, you know, when we used to shoot on film, you know, I grew up with film in the darkroom and loved the film. Film cost money, and you would pay attention to how much film you were using because it was costing you. Once we moved to digital, the mindset changed. This isn't costing me anything to hold the shutter button down. Where it's costing you is on the back end in time to store it and time to manage it. And that's where this process comes in. Yeah.
like the intention. It's the intention that like Dan was talking about, shooting with intention, you know, that's the same intention we all applied when we had to shoot on film. You know, unless you're shooting sports and you're blowing through rolls, but still it's that one catch, it's the one, you know.
I do keywords. Right. I do keywords for actually ones that are just data, like these are all the people in the room, these are all the names. Or a note that is stuff that's not a good photograph, but it goes with this as it provides information. I do have a keyword for that.
Yeah, we've got a question here.
Just another, like as far as the cost goes, like it's intangible when you store things digitally, but like that is a physical computer somewhere else that's using electricity, that's taking up space. Then like if we just keep going down, like it might be cheap, but like there's other like environmental costs and like other things you don't.
Thank you. We're actually gonna talk about that right here. All right, Joey?
And I'll just make the brief comment too. Something we've experienced in our office is as cameras are getting better and better, the file sizes are getting bigger, they're shooting at higher frame rates, and so even though the cost of storage and the efficiency of storage is improving, the rate at which we create data is going up exponentially. I mean, Nate talks about that he'll go to a basketball game and he'll have 2 or 3 cameras on his body, he'll have 2 or 3 remote cameras set up, and he's coming home with 20,000 images from a 2-hour basketball game. And there's just no way that you can sustain that level of storage and that level of content. So you have to go through and be willing to let go of the things that aren't the best, that aren't worth keeping.
So I did some math a few years ago. I manage BYU Photos, photo archive and all their photos. And I went through and I added up, we've got almost 15 million photos. And I went and I did the calculation. If you spent 1 second per photo, how long would it take you to get through, just to look at all 15 million photos, right? 24/7, 365 days a year, it would take over a year to go through all of those photos. That's the problem that we're trying to address. Let's move on because we're running out of time. We're going to get into some considerations, some geek stuff, some technology stuff. When we're looking at storage, when we're looking at archive, we need to think about file systems. We need to think about the type of file systems. Is it accessible to Mac? Is it accessible to PC? What file format do I have it in? Naming conventions are your best friend. These need to be human readable. They need to be, this is how people are going to find stuff in your archive. It's not going to be AI. It's not going to be some technology thing. It's your naming system. It needs to be something that a stranger can understand and find your photos. If you want your work to live on, make that naming convention and keep it consistent. Sometimes a new photographer will come in and they'll say, hey, I want to change this. I want to do it this way. That's fine, but I would argue to try to keep it as similar, or if you're going to move, make that move and leave some sort of note that, hey, we were doing it by year, now we're doing it by department, or whatever that is. But naming conventions will be your big friend. Back to your question of file formats. What file format do I store it in? That's a tough question. It really is a tricky question, because if we start talking RAW is amazing. We want all the data in RAW, but how many of you have had a RAW format that is no longer standard, right? You've got it in a RAW and now you can't find that format, right? So that's a tricky question. Again, this comes back to the value of your data. If it's a high value data thing, keep the RAW, absolutely, but keep a JPEG copy. And the reason I say JPEG is the Library of Congress says JPEG is acceptable. That's something they will take. And JPEG can be read by pretty much any computer in the world, anywhere right now, right? Yes, it's a compressed format, but any device can pretty much read a JPEG. So,
I just maybe thought of this. We use Mediagraph, and I don't know if they use. I think they can use JPEG 2000, and they can export as whatever we want. Is that? I mean, that's a lossless. Is that then a way of sort of getting both your lossless format on there, but you can output to whatever you need? Is that worthwhile?
You'd have to look into that JPEG 2000, right? It's still not. JPEG 2000 is a little bit different than JPEG, and not all devices can read JPEG 2000.
Right, but if the dam can read it, do I care?
You absolutely do, because your dam at some point is not going to be your dam. It is now, it is today. In 5 years, 10 years, it may not be. So I would absolutely look at that. Your file size and your file format is going to affect your read and write speed, especially when you go to a dam. If I'm pushing 1,000 raw photos out to a dam, it's going to take longer than pushing 1,000 JPEGs or 5,000 JPEGs. That's something to take into consideration. Also, cost. If I'm storing all of my raw out on a dam system, it's going to cost me more than if I'm storing JPEGs or compressed. Also, number of file, and then longevity. What's a good type? That's kind of why we're here, right? So real quick types of storage. We've got our traditional hard drive. Now I'm going to talk capacities a little bit. This capacity is based off of what you can go out to Amazon and buy right now. Okay, this is consumer. I'm talking consumer. I'm not talking data center. That 32 terabytes is a Seagate drive that is currently available for data centers, and probably within 6-8 months the consumer can buy it. So it's got it up there. But based on the 24 terabytes, your cost per terabyte is about $17, $18 per terabyte. Your maximum read and write speed is about 600 megabytes a second, and your longevity is 5 years. Now I know you're saying, hey, we've got hard drives older than that. Yes, you can have a hard drive that'll last longer than that. This is the manufacturer. What most of them will say is 5 years. There's also a star here on this because that 5 years, if you read the small print, the 5 years says that drive needs to be spun up every 6 months. So for people that are taking a hard drive, putting all my photos on it, and then taking that hard drive out and putting it in a case and setting it on a shelf somewhere, that's not an archive. Okay, you've got maybe 5 years of archive. If you pull it out and spin it up every 6 months, those are your best practices. Okay, solid state drive. Solid state drive is kind of the new, well, not new, it's been around for quite a while. You can see these are a bunch of different formats of solid state drives, the different connection types. Be aware of the different connection types because they will affect your speed. If we look at that first one, the SATA, it's not really much faster than a spinning drive when we start talking solid state because of the connection type. If we look at an NVMe, that's quite a bit different as far as speed. So for example, the maximum capacity right now on a solid state drive in the consumer market is about 8 terabytes. You can buy this right now on Amazon. It's not very common. I'd say the common one is 4 terabytes, but there's your cost per terabyte. Yeah.
Is it pushing in that direction though, that SSD is going to be the future, it's going to get more increased capacity?
SSD will definitely, I think, be the future. How fast that happens? Well, it is the future in computers, right? Right now in your laptop, it's hard to buy a decent laptop with a spinning drive in it. They're pretty much all solid state because of this right here. This is your read and write speed for this new 8 terabyte. You look at how fast that can write data. It's going to be the future. Whether that size can keep up with spinning drive or some of these other options, I don't know. That I don't think, right? Well, in a data center, we can go up to 100 terabyte, but these are custom built and they are extremely expensive. Not normal people level. I mean, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Will it eventually get there? I think so, but we're still a few years out. Longevity on these is also, according to the manufacturer, 5 years. Okay? There's a star here. The star here is, these are rated in how quickly, how much data you write to them and how often. That's going to wear this drive out faster. So if you're moving a ton of files back and forth, you might be shorter than 5 years. If you pull it and stick it on a shelf, maybe a little bit longer. I'm trying to rush to get through real quick. We've got still DVD. DVD is still a legitimate option, believe it or not. Now,
it's got to be, because I've read that that's like not exactly a great archival process anymore.
The disc, a standard Blu-ray disc is probably not. A cheap Blu-ray disc, if you get a cheap Blu-ray disc, you burn it to a Blu-ray disc, and you stick it in a light-controlled environment and leave it alone, you'll get 5 years. You know, that's not great for a long archival. If you use an M disc or something like this, which is kind of not super popular, but the nice thing about an M disc is almost all of your DVD players can read them. Now I know DVD is going away, but if we look at your longevity, is you've got 1,000 years. It's designed to last for a long time. You are running into a number of problems. The cost per terabyte is expensive, and your write speed is terrible. But if you had your portfolio that's under 100 gigabytes and you really want to say, hey, I want this to last forever, the problem you're going to have with an M disk is our DVD player is going to be around in 1,000 years, right? That's maybe the problem. But and then if you've got a ton of data, right? A ton of data to write out to an M disk is going to be a long time. Blu-ray itself, just a standard Blu-ray, no, probably not. You're going to get 5 years. It's not much better than anything else. If you leave it in the sun or something, it's going to definitely shorten that. LTO tape, I don't know if you're familiar with LTO tape. The movie industry uses it quite a bit. It is still actually a very legitimate archive. It is kind of the standard. If we talk Amazon Glacier is LTO tape. That's what they're putting everything on. That's why you've got your 12 to 48 hour return time, is because Glacier's putting it on tape. You've got 18 terabytes uncompressed, 45 terabytes compressed. Here's the beauty of LTO tape, is your cost per terabyte is about $6 uncompressed and about $2.45 compressed. Your read-write speed is comparable to a hard disk drive, and your longevity is 30 years. The 30 years on that is in a climate and humidity controlled environment. So, and back to your point, the nice thing I like about disk and I like about LTO tape is I can pull that off of a machine and set it on a shelf, and there's no environmental impact, really. I mean, if I'm putting everything in Glacier, I'm putting it in a DAM system, I'm putting it in the cloud, we are spending we're killing the planet in some ways as far as much electricity as we're using to run some of these data centers. They're incredibly power hungry. Yeah?
Just a real quick question. How much is a LTO reader?
An LTO...
I mean, I think we all know how much readers are for the rest of it.
Yeah. For an LTO reader, you're looking at about... A reader writer, yeah. A desktop version, if you wanted to stick it in your office, you're looking for about $6,000, $5 to $6,000 for a desktop reader. If you want a bigger, I mean, you can go crazy with these systems and go up into the tens of thousands of dollars. So, but yeah.
They're not as popular in that. Because it seems, when you get tape out of the newspaper, I don't know what that. It seems like that would be a perfect solution for everything you put on your desk.
It's an okay solution. Again, you've got to, if you don't have a humidity and climate controlled environment, you're going down to about 15 years. Also, they are susceptible to magnetic interference, right? You can set a magnet on it, you're going to erase it, just like your old cassette tape.
So this is like magnetic tape?
Yeah, this is a magnetic tape. This is a...
I mean, my old, docking tape from 30 plus years ago is still readable, and you can still listen to that.
This is basically the same technology. All right, I think we need to end. I can talk to you after about cloud. Here is basic Amazon cloud, NAS storage. And the summary is 3 things, right? Is create a storage policy, don't fear the Reaper, and then manage your data according to its value.
Going back to the last,
The NAS.
Do you have an example of a policy that you're willing to share?
Not one right now on me, but we're actually in the process of rewriting our policy. Yeah.
Where do you store your long-term files, photo files?
Right now, we're storing them on a local NAS device and backing them up out to the cloud. Is what we're doing right now. Yeah.
When you get done with your policy, would you mind doing like a blog with UPAA and everything? I think we'd all be very curious to see how you're doing there.
Jaren is the one to talk to about that, yeah. But
I was just going to say, it seems like, and maybe I'm wrong, when I have school on DVDs, I've had better success when I'm writing them, I'm writing them as slow as possible as opposed to do a speed burn on.
yes,
And then that way they seem to be much more readable at a later time.
yes. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you.